The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is brought to you by Clinica Sierra Vista.
Welcome back to the 17 News at Sunrise podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
Good morning here at 5 a.m. Thanks for waking up with us. I'm Maddie Jansen alongside Alex Fisher.
5:02 is our time now, and Kern County is no stranger to fentanyl and the tragedies it brings. The latest victim, a 9-month-old baby who reportedly stopped breathing before being rushed to the hospital. Police say they arrested the baby's mother, Gabriella Cruz, on Friday in East Bakersfield. The baby is now stable, but was found unresponsive and needed urgent medical attention. Last year, more than 200 people died from fentanyl overdoses in Kern. It can take as little as 2 milligrams of the drug. That's equal to the size of 5 to 7 grains of salt.
It doesn't take very much to become poisoned by it at all. 2 to 3 milligrams is a lethal dose. So think how lethal it could be for a baby that's 20 pounds.
When 17 News questioned Cruz on a phone call about how her 9-month-old baby ended up overdosing on the drug, she refused to answer any questions. This is not the only baby who has overdosed on fentanyl this month. The other one happened just last week. 2 parents were arrested when their 1-year-old boy overdosed in southwest Bakersfield. The baby was taken to the hospital and is also said to be stable. 20-year-olds John Lawson and Gabriella Goldberg were arrested but have not been charged. So far, no charges have been filed in either case. So we'll update you if anything changes. And for comprehensive reporting on this fentanyl crisis, including Robert Price's in-depth series called Fentanyl, the Counterfeit Killer, you can visit our website, kget.com/fentanyl.
Court Watch now will be waiting a bit longer to learn the fate of convicted murderer Jamie Osuna, with his competency hearing again postponed. Osuna's attorney cited the ongoing pandemic as the reason for the delay, saying she's not been allowed to see her client in person due to COVID protocols at Sacramento State Prison. Osuna has been serving a life prison term without parole for the torture and killing of Yvette Pena in Bakersfield. He pleaded guilty in 2017 to first-degree murder and other charges filed in Pena's killing. Osuna was also accused of decapitating his cellmate in 2019. The competency hearing has been delayed until March. We took a deep dive into Osuna's life and the lives of his victims in our award-winning podcast, The Man with 1,000 Faces. You can listen on Apple, Spotify, and other sites. Just go to 1000facespodcast.com for more.
5:04 is our time now, and over the weekend, 17 News and local officials across Kern County received hundreds of emails calling for justice for a woman who said she was sexually abused when she was just 15 years old.
According to the emails, Kari Walton's alleged abuser, Miguel Acosta Castillo Jr., was already a registered sex offender and is still out on bail. The trial has yet to reach the courtroom. 17's Maddie Gannon has the story.
A lot of these cases and a lot of these traumatic events go unreported. They stay behind closed doors, and unfortunately, individuals have to cope with their trauma by themselves a lot of time.
Skidmore said many survivors of sexual assault go through 5 stages of grief. And although she couldn't speak to Kari Walton's situation specifically, Skidmore said an experience like waiting to relive an abuse in court can make recovering even more difficult.
Each survivor goes through a huge emotional internalization of what is happening. And so there is a big emotional toll that leads up to the court case or having to face your abuser again.
And in this case, Walton has been waiting for 4 years for that court date. Assistant District Attorney Joe Kinzel told 17 News the trial has been postponed 12 times at the request of the defense attorney. He says the Kern's DA office has objected on multiple occasions. And in an email to 17 News, Walton called the delays a huge failure of the justice system. Kinzel said when the trial starts is ultimately up to the judge, not the DA's office. Skidmore emphasized the help available for those affected by sexual abuse.
We have numerous services, including domestic violence shelters. We also have therapy for children ages 2 to 17. And then we also have adult counseling.
17 News spoke with Walton's mother for half an hour, but she did not want to talk on camera. The trial is now scheduled to start Thursday, but it remains unclear whether it actually will. We should mention it's our usual policy not to name alleged victims of sexual abuse. In this case, however, Walton is publicly revealing her identity to raise awareness of what she sees as a broken system.
Walton's alleged abuser, Miguel Acosta Castillo Jr., has a history of taking plea deals for similar charges. In 2001, he was sentenced to 6 months after pleading no contest to lewd or lascivious acts with a child under the age of 14 years old. In 2013, he served another 45 days after pleading no contest to being a sex offender who failed to provide requested information to the Justice Department. The most recent case from 2018 involving Kari Walton has Castillo facing multiple charges of lewd or lascivious acts with a child of 14 to 15 years old, as well as sexual penetration by force with a minor, along with other charges including false imprisonment.
And now to the latest on COVID-19 here at home. More than 6,900 new cases of the virus were diagnosed over the weekend countywide, according to Kern Public Health. Despite the spike, no new deaths were reported, and the number of those hospitalized with the virus dropped. 309 people are in local hospitals diagnosed with the virus. That's down 10 from the last update. According to state data, 53 people are in local ICUs.
Finally, some good news nationwide. The number of new COVID-19 cases is falling. In the Northeast and parts of the Midwest, the decline is sharp, and experts say the Omicron variant may have peaked in those areas. Cases in the East are down 10% compared to a week ago. But on the West Coast, including Kern County, it's a different story. The number of patients in California's ICUs up well over 60%. Health officials continue to insist that vaccines are the best weapon against the surge.
Boosting individuals makes a major positive impact in protecting you against severe disease, even with Omicron. So you want to make sure we get as many people vaccinated.
But vaccine resistance is still strong. Thousands marched on the National Mall on Sunday in the Defeat the Mandates protest. Meantime, the World Health Organization says it is dangerous to assume that Omicron will be the last variant and that we're reaching the end of the pandemic.
As the pandemic rolls on here in Kern, health officials worry we aren't doing enough to protect our most vulnerable.
Hospitalizations still spiking among infants and toddlers. 17's Chris Burton joins us this morning live with more. Chris, good morning.
Alex, good morning. As national health officials weigh the authorization of COVID shots among kids younger than 5, those kids are getting sick in higher numbers than ever. More kids ages 0 to 4 are falling ill with COVID. Nationally, hospitalizations among this age group are spiking. Here in Kern, public health data shows that at least 8,500 kids, that's kids ages 0 to 17, have tested positive since January 1st. Because age 5 is the last age group that remains unvaccinated, local pediatrician Dr. Namisha Amin says the best thing families can do is surround young kids with protection.
I would say still in this age group, the great majority of children are getting infected from parents as opposed to play dates or other types of outings.
Amin says it's up to those parents to stay protected, masking and keeping up to date on vaccinations. Omicron has not been raising the rate of hospitalization for children infected by the virus, but the variant has spread like wildfire, especially among kids, causing numbers of hospitalizations for this last vulnerable age group to surge. And federal data also shows that hospitalization for non-COVID maladies is up as well. Many times those kids will come to the hospital with non-COVID maladies and then be diagnosed with COVID in the hospital. Live in Bakersfield, Chris Burton, 17 News.
All right, thank you, Chris. Your time is 5:36. Education news this morning. California lawmakers set to consider a bill that would require all school children in the state be vaccinated for in-person learning, regardless of their personal beliefs. Leaders from the LA Unified and San Diego Unified School Districts joined with the state Senator Richard Pan yesterday to make the announcement. The proposed legislation is called Keep Schools Open and Safe Act. It would add the COVID-19 vaccine to the list of inoculations required for students to attend K-12 schools in the state. Students who do not get vaccinated would learn remotely with independent study programs or be homeschooled.
And so we need to take all the steps we can to ensure that parents have confidence that the school is safe. And then the school district's responsibility is to ensure every child, no matter what choices the parents make, have an opportunity to get their child educated.
The new vaccine bill comes just days after some lawmakers filed a proposal allowing teens to get the COVID-19 vaccine without parental consent. The bill will need to be approved in the state legislature and signed into law by the governor. If passed, it will go into effect on January 1st, 2023.
This all comes amid a teacher shortage being felt not only in California but across the country. It is being blamed on COVID and teachers just leaving the industry altogether. And schools are struggling to fill the void. News Nation's Brian Inton reports.
Let's keep reading.
Schools are back in person around the country, just without enough teachers and no substitutes to fill in. The problem is so bad in some districts like Miami and Chicago, teacherless students are sent to the cafeteria in big groups just to sit.
So I asked him what he was doing texting me during class, and he said they don't have a teacher, which to me was just kind of shocking.
No teacher?
What do you mean you have no teacher during school time? And he said, yeah, there's just no teacher, so we're just kind of sitting around. I said, in a classroom by yourself? He said, no, they just send us to the auditorium and just put us all together.
He's learning that all of these
teachers are calling in sick in record numbers, and schools are having to get creative to fill their spots. New Mexico Governor Michelle Grisham will fill in substituting next week and is asking members of the National Guard to also step in. In Michigan, bus drivers and cafeteria workers are now allowed to substitute teach. And in Indiana, schools are calling on parents to fill in.
I'm only missing, at most a couple hours of my workday if I come in and fill in the morning.
And it's not just public schools, it's daycares and preschools too. In Arkansas, this preschool is having to turn families away.
We're broken. That is just the bottom line. We are broken. We are at a critical point.
Even when substitutes are able to fill in, parents say it's not always ideal.
When there is a substitute, what's it like?
Babysitting is what one of them has said to me. He said, oh, we didn't learn anything today because it was a sub.
That was Brian Inton reporting. The Bakersfield City School District is looking to hire new teachers for the upcoming 2022-23 school year. They're holding a virtual job fair next month on February 26th. Those interested must apply by February 9th. You can learn more at bcsd.com.
I know that every district, every school in Kern County, just dealing with a lot right now.
Yeah,
and because we're talking experienced teachers who have said that they have never dealt with something like this before, just given the current situation. We just want to say thank you to all those teachers out there, educators, principals, administrators who are dealing with this. We've heard from local teachers say that they don't even worry about tomorrow until tomorrow because they know that it's going to be a completely different battle. And it's like just focus on today and then get to tomorrow when you wake up and go into work the next day. So thank you to everyone, all the educators out there who are dealing with this.
Absolutely. Hopefully we're through it soon.
Welcome back. And a recent study says that over the past 2 years of caring for COVID patients, nurses and other first responders reported high levels of stress, depression, and fatigue. And this morning, Dan Thorne brings us the story of a Stanford nurse who died by suicide last week. His friends hope his death can bring attention to the importance of mental health for all healthcare workers.
Friends and co-workers of 27-year-old Michael Odell are heartbroken. The travel ICU nurse from Oklahoma had been working at Stanford Hospital before committing suicide last week.
Michael was incredible. He was fearless. He lived his life fully. He finished nursing school at 20 years old, which is a feat in its own. He's just a genius to me.
Josh Paredes was best friends with Odell. As a fellow nurse, he says the stresses of the job have become overwhelming for so many in the healthcare field. Paredes believes it's important for people to hear Odell's story.
I think he just couldn't take it anymore. I think across the country and probably world, but I've seen statistics where suicide is up with healthcare professionals, and that's why I think it's so important that we talk about this.
A recent study published in the Journal of General Internal Medicine included a survey of more than 500 doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers who have been treating COVID patients. Within it, they found 74% saying they were depressed. 37% reported they were experiencing symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, and 15% said they had thoughts of suicide or self-harm.
I mean, it's tragic. It breaks my heart to think that if he didn't feel like he had the support.
Stanford nurse Gabby Ledoux helped in the frantic two-day search for Odell, who abruptly left work and went missing last Tuesday. The search ended tragically on Thursday when Odell's body was found at the Don Edwards Wildlife Refuge. Ledoux says right now, frontline workers across the country need more support.
People who are not in the healthcare field do not understand the weight of how COVID has affected all of us, and we are going through mass burnouts at other hospitals and therefore losing staff.
Odell's colleagues are hoping employers will step up in their efforts to address the well-being of their workers. For Paredes, Odell's death is pointing out the need for these conversations.
Because the more we talk about it, the more we'll kind of dismantle the stigma attached to mental illness. And maybe people will be more inclined to speak up when they're hurting.
Dan Thorne reporting. If you or someone you know is going through a difficult time or dealing with suicidal thoughts, you can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. That number is right there on your screen. Help is available 24/7. You know, I think it's also something, I was literally just talking about it. Right before the Delta surge in August, I went into Bakersfield Memorial Hospital to talk to some of the nurses. This was before the Delta surge, and they were already expressing just fatigue, exhaustion, and they had not 100% recovered from everything that they dealt with last winter. So I know that a lot of healthcare professionals, we talk about the numbers, we hear about the stories, and then sometimes we move on and cover other things, obviously. But for those frontline doctors, they're dealing with the pandemic every single day over the last 2 years, and they have to go 100%. And unfortunately, it is taking its toll.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.